The American people deserve better. The American people deserve better. Because as the saying goes, if you've got something to say, say it to my face.
This is Africa.
Kamala Devi Harris was born October 20, 1964, and is an American politician and attorney who is the 49th and current Vice President of the United States since 2021, under President Joe Biden. She is the first female vice president and the highest-ranking female official in U.S. history, as well as the first African American and first South Asian American vice president. A member of the Democratic Party, she served as a U.S. Senator from California from 2017 to 2021, and the Attorney General of California from 2011 to 2017. Following the withdrawal of Joe Biden from the presidential race, Harris has been described as the presumptive nominee of the Democratic Party in the 2024 presidential election. Born in Oakland, California, Harris graduated from Howard University and the University of California, Hastings College of the Law. She began her law career in the office of the District Attorney, DA, of Alameda County, before being recruited to the San Francisco DA's office and later the City Attorney of San Francisco's office. In 2003, she was elected DA of San Francisco. She was elected Attorney General of California in 2010 and re-elected in 2014. Harris served as the junior U.S. Senator from California from 2017 to 2021. She defeated Loretta Sanchez in the 2016 Senate election to become the second African American woman and the first South Asian American to serve in the U.S. Senate. As a senator, Harris advocated for stricter gun control laws, the DREAM Act, and federal legalization of cannabis, as well as health care and taxation reform. She gained a national profile for her pointed questioning of Trump administration officials during Senate hearings, including Trump's second Supreme Court nominee, Brett Kavanaugh. Harris sought the 2020 Democratic presidential nomination, but withdrew from the race before the primaries. Biden selected her to be his running mate, and their ticket went on to defeat the incumbent president and vice president, Donald Trump and Mike Pence, in the 2020 election. Harris and Biden were inaugurated on January 20, 2021. Presiding over an evenly split Senate upon entering office, Harris played a crucial role as President of the Senate with her power to cast tie-breaking votes, helping pass bills such as the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 stimulus package and the Inflation Reduction Act. After Biden's withdrawal from the 2024 presidential election, Harris launched her own presidential campaign with Biden's endorsement. On July 22, 2024, Harris secured enough non-binding support from delegates to become the presumptive nominee of the Democratic Party. Early life and education. Kamala Devi Harris was born in Oakland, California, on October 20, 1964. Her mother, Shyamala Gopalan, was a biologist whose work on the progesterone receptor gene stimulated advances in breast cancer research. Shyamala had moved to the United States from India as a 19-year-old graduate student in 1958. After studying nutrition and endocrinology at the University of California, Berkeley, she received her Ph.D. in 1964. Kamala Harris's father, Donald J. Harris, is a Stanford University professor of economics, emeritus, who arrived in the United States from Jamaica in 1961 for graduate study at UC Berkeley and received a Ph.D. in economics in 1966. Donald Harris and Shyamala Gopalan met in 1962 and were married in 1963. In 1966, the Harris family moved to Champaign, Illinois, where Kamala's younger sister, Maya, was born, when her parents took positions at the University of Illinois. The family moved around the Midwest, with both parents working at multiple universities in succession over a brief period. Kamala, along with her mother and sister, moved back to California in 1970, while her father remained in the Midwest. They stayed briefly on Milvia Street in central Berkeley, then at a duplex on Bancroft Way in West Berkeley, an area often called the Flatlands, with a significant black population. When Harris began kindergarten, she was bused as part of Berkeley's comprehensive desegregation program to Thousand Oaks Elementary School, a public school in a more prosperous neighborhood in northern Berkeley, which previously had been 95% white, and after the desegregation plan went into effect, became 40% black. Harris's parents divorced when she was 7. African American intellectuals and rights advocates constituted Harris's formative surroundings. Mary Lewis, who helped start the field of African American studies at San Francisco State University and taught there for many years, was one of Shyamala Gopalan's most trusted friends. When Shyamala worked late at her lab, Kamala was cared for by Regina Shelton, a black woman whose daycare center in the apartment below was decorated with pictures of Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth.
Harris has written that Shyamala knew that her adopted homeland would see Maya and me as black girls, and she was determined to make sure we would grow into confident, proud black women. A neighbor regularly took the Harris girls to an African-American church in Oakland, where they sang in the children's choir, and the girls and their mother also frequently visited a nearby African-American cultural center. Their mother introduced them to Hinduism and took them to a nearby Hindu temple, where Shyamala occasionally sang. As children, she and her sister visited their mother's family in Madras, now Chennai, on occasion. Kamala Harris says she was impressed by her maternal grandfather's progressive views. Harris has remained in touch with her Indian aunts and uncles. The two Harris sisters spent summers with their father in Palo Alto, and now and then traveled to Jamaica with him. When she was 12, Harris and her sister moved with their mother to Montreal, Quebec, where Shyamala had accepted a research and teaching position at the McGill University-affiliated Jewish General Hospital. Harris attended a French-speaking primary school, Notre Dame des Neiges, then Face School, and finally Westmount High School in Westmount, Quebec, graduating in 1981. There, a friend confided to Harris that she had been sexually abused in her home. Hearing of her schoolmate's experience helped form Harris's later commitment as a prosecutor to protect women and children. During her period in Montreal, Harris has stated she learned some French. After high school, Harris attended Vanier College in Montreal in 1981-1982. She then attended Howard University, a historically black university in Washington, D.C., living initially in a dorm room at Eaton Tower near Thomas Circle. While at Howard, she interned as a mailroom clerk for California Senator Alan Cranston, chaired the Economic Society, led the debate team, and joined Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. She also completed a summer internship at the Federal Trade Commission, worked as a tour guide at the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, and participated in anti-apartheid protests at the South African Embassy and National Mall. Harris graduated in 1986 with a degree in political science and economics. Harris then returned to California to attend the University of California College of the Law, San Francisco, formerly the University of California, Hastings College of the Law through its Legal Education Opportunity Program, LEO, while at UC Law San Francisco. She served as president of its chapter of the Black Law Students Association. She graduated with a Juris Doctor in 1989 and was admitted to the California Bar in June 1990. Early career, 1990-2004. In 1990, Harris was hired as a deputy district attorney in Alameda County, California, where she was described as an able prosecutor on the way up. In 1994, Speaker of the California Assembly Willie Brown, who was then dating Harris, appointed her to the State Unemployment Insurance Appeals Board and later to the California Medical Assistance Commission. Harris took a 6-month leave of absence in 1994 from her duties, then afterward resumed working as prosecutor during the years she sat on the boards. Harris's connection to Brown was noted in media reportage as part of a pattern of California political leaders appointing friends and loyal political soldiers to lucrative positions on the commissions. Harris has defended her work.
In February 1998, San Francisco District Attorney Terrence Hallinan recruited Harris as an assistant district attorney. There, she became the chief of the Career Criminal Division, supervising 5 other attorneys, where she prosecuted homicide, burglary, robbery, and sexual assault cases, particularly 3 strikes cases. In 2000, Harris reportedly clashed with Hallinan's assistant, Darrell Salomon, over Proposition 21, which granted prosecutors the option of trying juvenile defendants in superior court rather than juvenile courts. Harris campaigned against the measure, which passed. Salomon opposed directing media inquiries about Prop 21 to Harris and reassigned her. A de facto demotion. Harris filed a complaint against Salomon and quit. In August of 2000, Harris took a job at San Francisco City Hall, working for City Attorney Louise Rennie. Harris ran the Family and Children's Services Division, representing child abuse and neglect cases. Renee endorsed Harris during her DA campaign. In the year 2002, Kamala Harris prepared to run for district attorney of San Francisco against Hallinan, the incumbent, and Bill Fazio. Harris was the least known of the 3 candidates, but persuaded the Central Committee to withhold its endorsement from Hallinan. Harris and Hallinan advanced to the general election runoff with 33 and 37% of the vote, respectively. In the runoff, Harris pledged never to seek the death penalty and to prosecute 3 strike offenders only in cases of violent felonies. Harris ran a forceful campaign assisted by former Mayor Willie Brown, Senator Dianne Feinstein, writer and cartoonist Aaron McGruder, and comedians Eddie Griffin and Chris Rock. Kamala Harris differentiated herself from Hallinan by attacking his performance. She argued that she left his office because it was technologically inept, emphasizing his 52% conviction rate for serious crimes, despite an 83% average conviction rate statewide. Kamala Harris charged that his office was not doing enough to stem the city's gun violence, particularly in poor neighborhoods like Bayview and the Tenderloin, and attacked his willingness to accept plea bargains in cases of domestic violence. Harris won with 56% of the vote, becoming the first person of color elected as district attorney of San Francisco. Harris ran unopposed for a second term in November of 2007. In November of 2005, Harris created an environmental crimes unit. Also in 2005, the National Black Prosecutors Association awarded Harris the Thurgood Marshall Award. In 2007, Kamala Harris and City Attorney Dennis Herrera investigated San Francisco Supervisor Ed Jew for violating residency requirements necessary to hold his supervisor position. Harris charged Jew with 9 felonies, alleging that he had lied under oath and falsified documents to make it appear he resided in a Sunset District home, necessary so he could run for supervisor in the 4th District. Jew pleaded guilty in October of 2008 to unrelated federal corruption charges, mail fraud, soliciting a bribe, and extortion, and pleaded guilty the following month in state court to a charge of perjury for lying about his address on nomination forms as part of a plea agreement in which the other state charges were dropped, and Jew agreed to never again hold elected office in California. Kamala Harris described the case as about protecting the integrity of our political process, which is part of the core of our democracy, she says. For his federal offenses, Jew was sentenced to 64 months in federal prison and a $10,000 fine. For the state's perjury conviction, Jew was sentenced to 1 year in county jail, 3 years probation, and about $2,000 in fines. Under Kamala Harris, the district attorney's office obtained more than 1,900 convictions for marijuana offenses, including persons simultaneously convicted of marijuana offenses and more serious crimes. The rate at which Harris's office prosecuted marijuana crimes was higher than the rate under Hallinan, but the number of defendants sentenced to state prison for such offenses was substantially lower. Prosecutions for low-level marijuana offenses were rare under Harris, and her office had a policy of not pursuing jail time for marijuana possession offenses. Harris's successor as district attorney, George Gascon, expunged all San Francisco marijuana offenses going back to 1975. Kamala Harris has expressed support for San Francisco's sanctuary city policy of not inquiring about immigration status in the process of a criminal investigation. Violent crimes. In the early 2000s, the San Francisco murder rate per capita outpaced the national average. Within the first 6 months of taking office, Kamala Harris cleared 27 of 74 backlogged homicide cases by settling 14 by plea bargain and taking 11 to trial. Of these trials, 9 ended with convictions and 2 with hung juries. She took 49 violent crime cases to trial and secured 36 convictions. From 2004 to 2006, Harris achieved an 87% conviction rate for homicides and a 90% conviction rate for all felony gun violations. Kamala Harris also pushed for higher bail for criminal defendants involved in gun-related crimes, arguing that historically low bail encouraged outsiders to commit crimes in San Francisco. San Francisco Police Department officers credited Harris with tightening the loopholes defendants had used in the past. In addition to creating a gun crime unit, Harris opposed releasing defendants on their own recognizance if they were arrested on gun crimes, sought minimum 90-day sentences for possession of concealed or loaded weapons, and charged all assault weapons possession cases as felonies, adding that she would seek prison terms for criminals who possessed or used assault weapons and would seek maximum penalties on gun-related crimes. Kamala Harris created a hate crimes unit focusing on hate crimes against LGBT children and teens in schools. In early 2006, Gwen Araujo, a 17-year-old American Latin transgender teenager, was murdered by 2 men who later used the gay panic defense before being convicted of second-degree murder. Harris, alongside Araujo's mother, Sylvia Guerrero, convened a 2-day conference of at least 200 prosecutors and law enforcement officials nationwide to discuss strategies to counter such legal defenses. Harris subsequently supported AB 1160, the Gwen Araujo Justice for Victims Act, advocating that California's penal code include jury instructions to ignore bias, sympathy, prejudice, or public opinion in making their decision. Also making mandatory for district attorneys' offices in California to educate prosecutors about panic strategies and how to prevent bias from affecting trial outcomes. In September of 2006, California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger signed AB 1160 into law. The law put California on record as declaring it contrary to public policy for defendants to be acquitted or convicted of a lesser included offense on the basis of appeals to societal bias. In August of 2007, State Assemblyman Mark Leno introduced legislation to ban gun shows at the Cow Palace, joined by Harris, Police Chief Heather Fong, and Mayor Gavin Newsom. City leaders contended the shows were directly contributing to the proliferation of illegal guns and spiking homicide rates in San Francisco. Earlier that month, Newsom had signed into law local legislation banning gun shows on city and county property. Leno alleged that merchants drove through the public housing developments nearby and illegally sold weapons to residents. While the bill would stall, local opposition to the shows continued until the Cow Palace Board of Directors in 2019 voted to approve a statement banning all future gun shows. Reform efforts. The death penalty. During her campaign, Kamala Harris pledged never to seek the death penalty after a San Francisco Police Department officer, Isaac Espinosa, was shot and killed in 2004. United States Senator and former San Francisco Mayor Dianne Feinstein, U.S. Senator Barbara Boxer, Oakland Mayor Jerry Brown, and the San Francisco Police Officers Association pressured Harris to reverse that position, but she did not. Polls found that 70% of voters supported Harris's decision. When Edwin Ramos, an illegal immigrant and alleged MS-13 gang member, was accused of murdering a man and his two sons in 2009, Harris sought a sentence of life in prison without parole, a decision Mayor Gavin Newsom backed. In 2004, Kamala Harris recruited civil rights activist Latifah Simon to create the San Francisco Reentry Division. The flagship program was the Back on Track initiative, a first of its kind reentry program for first-time nonviolent offenders aged 18 to 30. Initiative participants whose crimes were not weapon or gang-related would plead guilty in exchange for a deferral of sentencing and regular appearances before a judge over 12 to 18 months. The program maintained rigorous graduation requirements, mandating completion of up to 220 hours of community service, obtaining a high school equivalency diploma, maintaining a steady employment, taking parental classes, and passing drug tests. At graduation, the court would dismiss the case and expunge the graduate's record. Over 6 years, the 200 people graduated from the program had a recidivism rate of less than 10%, compared to the 53% of California's drug offenders who returned to prison within 2 years of release. Back on Track and recognition from the United States Department of Justice as a model for reentry programs. The Department of Justice found that the cost to the taxpayers per participant was markedly lower, $5,000, than the cost of adjudicating a case, which was $10,000, and housing a low-level offender, which was $50,000. In 2009, a state law, the Back on Track Reentry Act, AB 750, was enacted, encouraging other California counties to start similar programs. Adopted by the National District Attorneys Association as a model, prosecutor offices in Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Atlanta have used Back on Track as a template for their own programs. Truancy Initiative. In 2006, as part of an initiative to reduce the city's skyrocketing homicide rate, Harris led a citywide effort to combat truancy for at-risk elementary school youth in San Francisco, declaring chronic truancy a matter of public safety and pointing out that the majority of prison inmates and homicide victims are dropouts or habitual truants. Harris's office met with thousands of parents at high-risk schools and sent out letters warning all families of the legal consequences of truancy at the beginning of the fall semester, adding she would prosecute the parents of chronically truant elementary students. Penalties included a $2,000 fine and up to a year in jail. The program was controversial when introduced. In 2008, Kamala Harris issued citations against 6 parents whose children missed at least 50 days of school, the first time in San Francisco prosecuted adults for state truancy. San Francisco's school chief, Carlos Garcia, said the path from truancy to prosecution was lengthy and that the school district usually spends months encouraging parents through phone calls, reminder letters, private meetings, hearings before the school attendance review board, and offers of help from city agencies and social services. 2 of the 6 parents entered no plea, but said they would work with the district attorney's office and social service agencies to create parental responsibility plans to help them start sending their children to school regularly. By April of 2009, 1,330 elementary school students were habitual or chronic truants, down 23% from 1,730 in 2008, and down from 2,517 in 2007, and from 2,856 in 2006. Kamala Harris's office prosecuted 7 parents in 3 years, with 1 jailed. In the year 2010 general election, she faced Republican Los Angeles County District Attorney Steve Cooley. Harris was sworn in on January 3rd, 2011. She was the first woman, the first African American, and the first South Asian American to hold the office of Attorney General in the state's history. Harris announced her intention to run for re-election in February of 2014. On the 4th of November 2014, Harris was re-elected against Republican Ronald Gold, winning 57.5% of the vote to 42.5%. In 2011, Kamala Harris obtained 2 of the largest recoveries in the history of California's False Claims Act over excess state medical and federal Medicare payments. In 2012, Harris leveraged California's economic clout to obtain better terms in the national mortgage settlement against the nation's 5 largest mortgage services. Harris worked with Assembly Speaker John Perez and Senate President Pro Tem Darrell Steinberg in 2013 to introduce the Homeowner Bill of Rights, considered one of the strongest protections nationwide against aggressive foreclosure tactics. In 2013, Kamala Harris declined to authorize a civil complaint against One West Bank, owned by an investment group headed by Stephen Mnuchin, then a private citizen. Harris was later criticized for accepting a donation from Mnuchin. In 2015, Kamala Harris obtained a $1.2 billion judgment against for-profit Corinthian colleges for false advertising and deceptive marketing targeting vulnerable low-income students and misrepresenting job placement rates to students, investors, and accreditation agencies. Kamala Harris opposed California's ban on affirmative action. She asked the Supreme Court to reaffirm its decision that public colleges and universities may consider race as one factor in admission decisions. In February of 2012, Kamala Harris announced an agreement with Apple, Amazon, Google, Hewlett-Packard, Microsoft, Research in Motion, and Facebook to mandate that apps sold in their stores display prominent privacy policies informing users of what private information they were sharing with whom. In 2015, Harris secured 2 settlements with Comcast totaling $59 million over allegations that it posted online the names, phone numbers, and addresses of tens of thousands of customers and discarded paper records without first omitting or redacting private customer information. In November of 2013, Kamala Harris launched the California Department of Justice's Division of Recidivism, Reduction, and Reentry. Harris' record on wrongful conviction rates as Attorney General has engendered criticism from academics and activists. After the 2011 United States Supreme Court decision in Brown versus Platter declared California's prisons so overcrowded they inflicted cruel and unusual punishment, Harris fought federal supervision, explaining, "I have a client, I don't get to choose my clients." In September 2014, Harris's office argued unsuccessfully in a court filing against the early release of prisoners, citing the need for inmate firefighting labor. After being elected, Harris declared her office would not defend Prop 8, a state constitutional amendment providing that only marriages between a man and a woman are valid. And in February 2013, she filed an amicus curiae brief arguing Proposition 8 was unconstitutional. Harris later justified her decision not to defend the law by saying it would be inappropriate for a state on the verge of bankruptcy to use all these resources to defend a law found to be unconstitutional. In 2014, Attorney General Kamala Harris co-sponsored legislation to ban the gay and trans panic defense in court, which passed. Harris appealed the federal ruling in favor of an imprisoned transgender woman's request for gender-affirming surgery in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, arguing that psychotherapy and feminizing hormone therapy were sufficient medical treatment, although she said she ultimately pushed the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation to change their policy. In 2019, Harris stated that she took full responsibility for briefs her office filed in this case and others involving access to gender-affirming surgery for trans inmates. Before Trump's impeachment trial on January 16, 2020, Kamala Harris spoke in the Senate about the justice system's integrity, asserting that no one, including the president, is above the law. She requested that Senate Judiciary Chairman Lindsey Graham pause judicial nominations during the trial, and he agreed. Harris voted to convict Trump for abuse of power and obstruction of Congress. Harris collaborated on bipartisan bills with Republicans, such as bail reform with Senator Rand Paul, election security with Senator James Lankford, and workplace harassment with Senator Lisa Murkowski. After being elected vice president, Kamala Harris resigned from the Senate on the 18th of January 2021 and was succeeded by Alex Padilla. Committee assignments included the Budget Committee, Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, subcommittees on federal spending oversight, regulatory affairs and federal management, Intelligence Committee, Judiciary Committee, subcommittees on the Constitution, oversight, agency action, federal rights and courts, privacy, technology and the law. Our caucus memberships are Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, Congressional Black Caucus, Congressional Caucus for Women's Issues, and the 2020 presidential campaign. Kamala Harris announced her presidential run on the 27th of January 2019 and was initially a top contender. She published a memoir raising speculation about her candidacy. Following her announcement, she tied a fundraising record set by Bernie Sanders. At her campaign launch in Oakland, over 20,000 people attended. In the June 2019 Democratic debate, Kamala Harris criticized Joe Biden for his remarks on segregationist senators, which boosted her poll numbers. However, her support declined after the August debate, where she faced scrutiny over her Attorney General record. Accusations against her included blocking DNA testing for a death row inmate, though not all criticisms were accurate. Harris's poll numbers fell to single digits over the next few months. Reformers criticized her toughened crime policies as California's Attorney General. On the 12th of June, the New York Times reported Harris was the frontrunner to be Biden's running mate. On the 26th of June, CNN confirmed she was one of Biden's top 4 contenders. On August 11th, 2020, Joe Biden chose Harris, making her the first African American, Indian American, and third woman to be a vice presidential nominee for a major party. Kamala Harris became vice president-elect after the Biden-Harris ticket won the 2020 election. She and Biden were named Time Person of the Year for the year 2020. Vice Presidency, 2021 to present. Kamala Harris was sworn in as the first female African American and Asian American vice president on January 20th, 2021. She's also the second person of color to hold the position, following Charles Curtis. Inauguration. Kamala Harris was sworn in using 2 Bibles held by her husband, one belonging to Regina Shelton and another to Thurgood Marshall. Associate Justice Sonia Sotomayor administered the oath of office. Harris's first act was swearing in Alex Padilla, Raphael Warnock, and John Ossoff. By December 2021, Kamala Harris was seen as pivotal in the Biden administration due to her tie-breaking vote in the Senate and her potential candidacy in 2024 if Biden did not run for re-election. Harris married attorney Doug Emhoff in 2014 and is stepmother to his 2 children. As of August 2019, the net worth was $5.8 billion. Kamala Harris is a Baptist and a member of the Links, a service organization for prominent Black women. Her sister Maya is a lawyer and political analyst. Her brother-in-law, Tony West, is Uber's general counsel, and her niece, Nina, is the founder of the Phenomenal Women Action campaign. As we all know, Kamala Harris accepted her party's nomination for the presidency on the 22nd of July, 2024. This nomination followed President Joe Biden's decision to step down from the race for re-election. At the Democratic National Convention, delegates had the responsibility to vote and confirm her as the party's candidate for the 2024 presidential election. Kamala Harris's journey to running for president of the United States in the 2024 election involved several key events and decisions. Vice presidency. Serving as vice president under Joe Biden, Harris was thrust into the national spotlight. Her role involved significant responsibilities, including casting tie-breaking votes in the Senate and addressing critical issues like voting rights and immigration reform. Advocacy and legislative work. Harris actively engaged in bipartisan legislation and policy advocacy. Her work on bills related to bail reform, election security, and workplace harassment showcased her ability to collaborate across the aisle and address pressing national issues. Public support and endorsements. Harris received significant endorsements and support from various political figures and organizations. Her campaign efforts were bolstered by endorsements from former Justice Department officials and prominent Democratic leaders, highlighting her credibility and experience. Campaigning efforts. Over the past year, Kamala Harris has been actively campaigning, participating in events, and engaging with voters. Her visits to key states like North Carolina and Massachusetts, where she highlighted the administration's achievements and emphasized the importance of voting, were pivotal in garnering public support. Media and public perception. Harris's media presence and public perception have been crucial in her campaign. She has been featured in various interviews, speeches, and public appearances, which have helped shape her image as a capable and experienced leader ready to take on the presidential role. Policy focus. Kamala Harris has consistently emphasized key policy areas such as healthcare, national security, and gun safety, which resonate with many voters. Her focus on these issues has helped establish her platform and differentiate her from other potential candidates. These factors collectively contributed to Kamala Harris's decision to run for president in 2024, positioning her as a prominent and viable candidate in the upcoming election. So, will she be America's next president? America's first Black female president? America's first Asian Indian president? Only time will tell. See you on the next video. Bye-bye.